There are some electronics topics that I just can't pass up making a video about because they're simple, effective, and useful. And Wheatstone bridges are one of those things. So the Wheatstone bridge is an amazingly accurate configuration of resistors that allow us to determine accurately an unknown resistance when comparing it to a known resistance. Now, instead of breadboarding a Wheatstone bridge, I thought it would be interesting not only to analyze how it does what it does, but also show what's going on inside of this box. So we'll do a mini teardown on this nifty old school Wheatstone bridge as well. So this is just the kind of nerdy stuff that I'm into. Hopefully you are too. I'm Derek and this is DC to Daylight. Now let's get into Wheatstone bridges. A Wheatstone bridge is a clever configuration of resistors that are arranged in a diamond pattern. A voltage source is connected at one set of terminals, and usually some kind of galvanometer, aka voltmeter, is connected across the remaining two terminals. By setting the proper ratio of resistances in each arm of the bridge, we can control the ratio of voltages across each resistor. If these ratios are balanced, then no current flows through the meter, and we can say that the bridge is at an equilibrium or balanced. So how is this useful? Well, if we set up the condition where we have three known resistors, we can put an unknown resistor into the circuit. And by varying the resistance on the opposite side of the bridge, we can balance it until our gauge shows a null. After that, a little bit of slick math will tell us what the value is. Let's take a closer look at what's going on inside of this bridge. I always think of circuits like this using the water analogy. So let's just say there are a couple of pipes with a smaller pipe making a connection between them. If I cap off the end of one pipe, the water flows through the center pipe in the obvious direction. If I reverse those conditions, the water flows through the center pipe, but in the opposite direction. However, if both pipes are flowing in the same direction and the same flow rate, the water pressure is the same at both ends of the middle pipe, and therefore no water flows through this section. This state represents the bridge being in equilibrium. Let's look at an actual circuit and redraw it so it more clearly resembles something we're used to seeing, series and parallel combination resistors. For now, we'll remove the galvanometer for simplicity's sake and make it less distracting. To start with, we'll say that all the resistors are known and all are of the same value, 10 kiloohms. And what I'm interested in is the voltage across the bridge where our galvanometer used to be at nodes A and B. Let's treat each arm of this circuit as if they are two independent branches. We'll call them branch 1 and branch 2. You might also note that each branch has two resistors in series, and this forms a voltage divider. Now, Ohm's law tells us that the voltage V is equal to current I times resistance R. Therefore, V and R are directly proportional. So if we increase one, the other one will also increase, and vice versa. Let's take a look at branch 1 to start with. So in this voltage divider, the upper resistor is 10K and the lower is 10K, and each is 50% of the total resistance of 20K in that branch. Then it must be true that 50% of the voltage is across each resistor as well, because remember, they're proportional. So if we've got 12 volts as a supply voltage at node A, we'd see 6 volts. Then the same must be true for branch 2 of our circuit, and we'll end up with 6 volts at node B. Now the difference between node A and node B is, of course, 0 volts. Now here's the whole point of this video. If the Wheatstone bridge is balanced, there is no voltage across the bridge, therefore no current flow. This means that if we stick a resistor between these two nodes, whether it be 100 ohms or 100 mega ohms, there will be no current flow. Pretty cool, huh? Again, the water analogy helps us to understand what's going on here. So in a bridge with equal flow rate and direction in both arms, there is no flow between the two. Taking it one step further, and thinking of water pressure as an analogy for voltage, if the ratio of resistance within each arm is equal, say it's 2:1 on each side, then also no current will flow between the arms. Notice that even though the pipe diameter is larger on the right, its ratio is still 2:1, so it is balanced. If we cause an imbalance in the bridge by reducing a section of pipe at the right arm, we've changed the ratio. It is now 10:1, and because of this imbalance, current will now flow from right to left. Note that the imbalance condition is a difficult problem to solve and is really outside the scope of this video, but you can be sure in another video we're going to come back and solve for the imbalanced case. Now let's look at the situation where the resistors in the circuit don't match. This is useful when you might design something in the real world. If our upper resistor in branch 1 is 500 ohms and our lower resistor is 3 times that, or 1.5K, we have a resistance ratio of 1:3. Since our source voltage is 12 volts and the voltage is proportional to the resistance, we'll end up with 3 volts across our upper resistor and 9 volts across the bottom resistor. Of course, if we add up 3 volts and 9 volts, Kirchhoff's voltage law tells us those should sum to the supply voltage of 12 volts. So in short, the voltage at node A is 9 volts. If you wanted to, you could also use the resistor divider formula to solve this. This formula is useful if you have resistor ratios that are not as easy to factor in your head. The same goes for the other leg, branch 2 of the Wheatstone Bridge. But notice that the values are double of those in branch 1. The upper resistor is 1K and the lower resistor is 3K. Well, guess what? The ratio of 1 to 3 is still true here. So the voltage at node B is again 9 volts. So this tells us as long as we scale the resistances properly, they only need to remain a balanced ratio in order to null the two nodes. Now comes the other clever part. If I have an unknown resistor and I want to find out exactly what its value is within some realistic tolerance, I need to compare it to a known resistance. If I take a wire with a known diameter and it has a certain resistivity, I can take a wiper and make a kind of potentiometer out of it. Depending where that wiper is, I end up with two resistors next to each other, right? If I were to make this resistor the top of my bridge and I connected a voltage source to the wiper, I essentially make two resistors that set their own ratio. Now that's not really practical. So what if I chopped up that wire into smaller bits, wound them on little cores? I could switch them in and out of a circuit to make a kind of switch potentiometer. Well, it just so happens our Wheatstone bridge on the bench does exactly that. Now that we've explained the basic theory of a Wheatstone bridge, let's go over to the bench and do a mini teardown and try to measure an unknown resistor. Okay, so here's our Wheatstone bridge and we're going to tear it down in a second. I just put a 47 ohm resistor in here, so we're going to try this out and see how it works. They do give you a little schematic here, and you can see there's a top part of our bridge. That's this ratio knob, which actually is called a multiply by knob over here. And then we have the stack of resistors that sets up the bottom section of our leg. And then the other part of our bridge is this unknown resistor here, X. What's cool is they give you kind of a little chart here that shows you what the ratio settings should be set at if you kind of have an idea of what your resistance is. And that's good because it can be really difficult to narrow it down. It's kind of like being zoomed in super close to a newspaper and all you see are dots. You can't, see the forest through the trees. So this kind of helps you narrow things down. So let's just take a look at this. BA is the battery that connects to the battery, obviously, or we can connect an external supply, I guess, if we connect to that, looking at the schematic. And then there's a resistor stack here, okay, that's the bottom part of the bridge. And then you have your ratio or your multiply by knob right here. It connects to the high side, I think, of these four resistors, and these are just wired in series, right? So one part of the bridge, this kind of splits across both parts of the bridge, and this is the final part of the bridge is, this unknown resistor here. So anyway, let's turn this on, give it a shot. When we press this button here, you can see the needle flying across. So 47 ohm, we have yellow, purple, and black. That's 4, 7, and 0 for the multiplier. And it's 5% tolerance. So let's just see how this thing performs. So first, our chart tells us to go to, if I'm a 47, I want to be on 0.01 is my multiplier. So let's do that, 0.0, and I press the button, it shoots off to the side, okay? You can see that. It's a little iffy. Now it's not working. Well, let's take out the batteries and see what that's all about. So there's like a battery door, I'm assuming what that is. That's what that is. We'll connect it straight up to a power supply. Interesting that there's PVC here. Can I take this out? I can take this out. So that's just a sleeve of batteries. It looks like there's no corrosion coming out. But looking at the schematic, I can probably just take the battery out and connect the power supply to this. So positive on the right, negative is on the left. Okay. You just get this set to, I don't know, 5 volts. Let's press the button again. Now it's working. So those batteries must be dead. All right, so this says we're too high, I guess. So yeah, so 4700 multiplied by 0.01 is 47. Okay, so we can probably zoom in later, but let's try to figure this out. If I go higher, I go further out faster. So that means that this should go down to 4.6. I'm getting closer. Just getting closer to that null point. 2, 1. Ooh. Is this exactly 46 ohms? All right, so we nailed 46 ohms, and that is within the 5% tolerance of this resistor. So hey, this thing's doing what it's supposed to do. Pretty neat. Let's open it up. All right, let me pull this resistor off and we'll open it up. Okay, so that just pops right out. And ooh, okay. So wow, there's a lot of grease and that smells kind of funky. Is this like a tube plug? It is. So can I just pull it out? Ooh, yep. So that's pretty neat. There's a, corroded spring, and that connects to this tube socket, and then the positive wire just goes to the screw terminals out here. So here's the underside of the board. Actually pretty neat. There are some things that jump out immediately, that the wires are really laid out nicely, 90-degree angles on everything. So I would imagine they would have had some kind of jig that they would have bent these on and then soldered everything together. Also, there's some melting here. So I looked at this, thought it was cloth wire. I guess it's not that old. So you actually have rubber here. The other thing that I noticed that of course you can't is the smell. So there's some smell coming off of this. It smells like grease. Obviously there's dielectric grease all over this, and I imagine that that's there to prevent corrosion. And I'm sure it's difficult to pick up on camera, but there is some corrosion on this copper down here. So where there was not grease, there's corrosion. That's a good indication of how that stuff actually does its job. So another thing that's interesting to note about this set of contacts is there are actually 4 layers of copper here, and they all come down and they have their own contact surfaces that mate with the copper planes. So what that does is you have all these contact resistances in parallel, and you actually decrease the contact resistance by having all of those kind of like parallel resistors. That's kind of interesting. Of course, you have all these precision wire wound resistors that make this thing do what it does. So we've got our ratio resistors over here. We've got our 4 resistors in series, and then we've got our gauge. So that's what this can is. And these 4, of course, make up one little section of the Wheatstone Bridge, and you can physically see that they're wired in series, which is actually pretty cool. So yeah, there's the whole of it, and these 2 contacts are for the resistor that you pop in here. And that's basically it. Well, that was it for this episode of DC to Daylight. As always, I hope you learned something, and hopefully you can appreciate how such a simple concept can be so useful and intriguing and fun to play with. Of course, nowadays we simply use a digital multimeter to make these kinds of measurements, but Wheatstone bridges still find themselves in applications like load cells, used to measure forces and torque in mechanical systems, and other sensor-based applications. So have you used load cells or Wheatstone bridges in your line of work or an interesting application in school? Well, I want to hear about it, so you can share that info down in the comments, or I encourage you to hit the link down in the description to the Element 14 website, and you can interact directly with me there. Yes, you have to sign up, but we're a unique community that thrives on sharing information and learning from each other, so check it out. Well, that's it for me, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one.